Hey y'all, here OS Reviews. In this video, we're taking a closer look at the Govee Curtain Lights, which is a product that I've had on my radar for quite some time, but as the saying goes, better late than never. Finally pulled the trigger as we are approaching the holiday season, and that might be an interesting ambiance piece. Govee is a company that we've checked out many of their other smart RGBIC table lamps, floor lamps in the past. This is another model in their collection that has been out for a little time now, has proven to be relatively popular. Unlike a traditional curtain light, each of the LEDs can be programmed using the companion app on your smartphone. Supporting both iOS and Android, you can send over different animations in a retro pixel art style, which is quite fun. Now, it's worth mentioning that Govee has come out recently with their updated second generation model of the curtain lights, just called the Govee Curtain Lights 2, still having the same number of LEDs, which would be 520 as the first gen here, as well as the same dimensions and concept. It's just the newer model is slightly brighter in terms of the lumens output, so colors will potentially look a little bit more contrasty if there's a bit of light around you. However, the first model is still available for sale, and I think it still can be an interesting option if you can find it at a discount. So just be on the lookout, because both the Curtain Light 1 and 2 retail at the same $130, but during various sales I've seen the Curtain Light 1 now fall for under $100, sometimes even hovering into the $80 price range now, which can actually be a pretty good moment to pick one up, because the concept is still the same. If you're using it in a darker space or environment, it could be still worthwhile to consider and save yourselves $40 or $50 when it is on sale. You can again draw your own animations or push over from templates available in their app. Even is compatible with smart voice assistants, including Google's as well as Amazon's Alexa, essentially turning a wall into a giant display, which is quite cool. And you can even stack multiple of the curtains together for an even larger panel or virtual screen size. A couple of other examples are shown here. So it can be an interesting decor item indoors or even outdoors. It does have a IP65 rating here, so if some rain splashes on it, it should still survive. And unlike a traditional desk lamp or table lamp, obviously it doesn't take up as much space since it's just hanging there onto the wall. Here's what it's supposed to look like in a darker space, including supporting moving animations as well. That just sets a very cool vibe as you're in a room drifting off into sleep, maybe even a alternative to a galaxy, nebula, star projector light. Assembly should also be relatively straightforward, some 3M sticky hooks that you can attach. In terms of dimensions, specifically, it's going to measure around 2 meters by 1.5 meters in terms of the surface area, or roughly 5 by 6.5 feet in terms of the space that it will occupy. So in here we have just a quick start guide that you can also find the QR code for downloading the Govee Home app. Further down below here, the first small box contains all of the aforementioned hooks that you can use to hang the lights up onto the wall using standard 3M sticky pads, which are pretty easy to remove and not really leave a residue when you're done or want to reassemble it, compared to if you already have a curtain rod, you may not need to even necessarily use these hooks. This just makes it compatible with really any wall or surface. You even get a small screwdriver included as well, just in case. And also in here is going to be the AC adapter, so it needs to be plugged in at all times for it to function, of course. It's not a rechargeable light. It has a bit more of a kind of industrial design here for twisting in the cable to prevent any water from leaking in if you are using it outdoors in the yard, for instance. And finally, the middle box here contains just the curtain lights, which, like the majority of other Govee products we've reviewed, also has a controller box so you can manually turn it on or off, and then further control it using the smartphone app, as well as the wire here that connects to the AC adapter. There is a rubber gasket as well to prevent any water from leaking in, and from this point it's just unraveling the kind of Velcro straps to prevent it from tangling around in transit, and then just pull it onto the wall. That we'll do in a moment, but this is what the LED beads are like. So it's slightly opaque, covered with what seems like hot glue or rubber to also prevent the beads themselves from getting in contact with any rain or water, for adding the IP resistance. Wires seem to be robust enough, and finally the top here is where again the lights will dangle down from, and we can attach these onto the hooks if needed. Takes between 5 to 15 minutes depending on if you are attaching all the hooks or if you're just directly hanging it up. And the lights are also rated to work in more extreme temperatures as well, including -10 degrees all the way up to 45 degrees Celsius, aka 113 degrees Fahrenheit. So it should survive winter as well as summer seasons if you are trying to use it outdoors. And so just for reference, if using the hook method, you just need to snap the two pieces together and then attach the optional screws, and then we have again that hook there to hang it onto a wire or onto a curtain rod. Alternatively, you can attach the 3M sticky also onto the back of the section to pop it onto a wall or surface directly, providing a couple of options there. Alternatively, again, the more permanently mounted seamless screw option, It requires you to attach this onto the wall to hang up instead. So there's a couple of methods of how you can attach it onto a wall or surface. So plugging in the curtain lights, right now we are in an afternoon environment, so there is still a little bit of ambient light coming in, but it looks like there's still enough brightness for the curtain lights here to be visible. So for me at least, brightness is honestly not bad, all things considered, even on this first gen model, unless you're using it outdoors primarily in brighter conditions, and that's probably where the extra lumen output of the second gen might be beneficial. But again, if your setup is primarily indoors, you actually might not see quite as big of a difference. Now opening up the Govee Home app, we can tap on Add a Device, and from here, if you have Bluetooth and location services turned on, it will detect the curtain lights automatically. Also tells us to rename the lights if we wanted to before tapping on confirm if you have multiple sets, and afterwards we'll connect to Wi-Fi. And so the Wi-Fi chip built into the lights control box that we saw earlier will allow it to stay connected to the internet, and like other smart lights, we're able to control it from further distances. And now it's going through the initial boot once again after the firmware update has been installed, and we'll also proceed here into a quick look at the UI of the app, which is relatively familiar if you've seen other Govee products in the past, including a slider up top to control the brightness level. So it is dimmable, and this is going to be the minimum brightness, for instance, at only 1%. It can act as a very gentle kind of night light, versus here at 100%, honestly, you could even use it as maybe a reading lamp. That is, if the light is behind you, as you can tell here, it really does add a gentle glow into the entire room. Almost like a retro pixel art type display as compared to something extremely dense. Anyways, you can also set a timer here, so you can program it to turn off automatically at certain times during the day, maybe if you're returning home from work, giving you some automation control, just like their other smart lights. And from here, we can also change specific colors. So this will give us a color wheel that we can slide on to change into just a single shade, including a white color. This mode is pretty good for reading, and you can also turn it into a warmer color temperature or colder based on your preferences. Similarly, you're able to change it to other shades. It's a pretty gradual transition as well, so it's very gentle. Now we can also go into the second one, which is scene selection mode, and this is going to give us some more dynamic animations. For instance, this one here is called Starfish, and as you can tell, there is kind of a star that's dancing along. Now in this current setup, some of the beads of LEDs are technically going behind the sofa, which I think looks quite good, particularly because depending on the height of your windows, if it is a really tall window, for instance, the lights may not dangle all the way to the ground, such as now, if we're looking behind the sofa, we can tell that there's still a little bit of distance between the lights as well as the ground. But again, it's kind of hidden from view if you're putting it behind an object. And one other slight con, I would say, is because the lights were rolled up in their packaging for transit, you can tell how the ends of the strings can sometimes be a little bit curved. And because of the waterproof coating on the wires, it's not quite as conformant as on kind of direct memory wire. You can still get it to bend to a shape that you want, make it a little bit more straight, but it requires a bit more effort, and you have to hold for maybe a few more seconds. But again, they won't be necessarily perfectly straight on all of the ends. So if Govee can figure out a way to perhaps better wrap up the cables to be a little bit more perhaps straight right out of the box, it might be something for them to consider, although honestly I don't think it impacts it too much because of the more rustic nature of the pixel art display, since it's designed to be a bit more pixelated anyways. Now going through some of the other themes, including autumn leaves, this one also looks quite nice. It's a static image showing off some of those colors of orange and greens. Other ones which might be dynamic, including this one called Sunset. And this next one is called Wave, so you can see the blue there kind of moving higher and lower as it's kind of breathing in and out. This next one here called Bubble is a little bit more obvious. We have some of those colored bubbles, almost like balloons, that are popping off there from the bottom. And one question that we've touched on with other curtain lights in the past has been whether you should put the lights in front of the curtain or behind the curtain. Of course, it isn't a problem if you're just mounting onto a wall or putting it outdoors. You won't have to choose between the two, but if you do have the availability of a curtain, I would say perhaps putting it behind the curtain might diffuse the lights a little bit more, almost like this bokeh effect where you have a little bit more of that blurring going on, might actually make it look a little bit softer and perhaps more subtle and pretty. However, it also means that the brightness of the LED beads will also be a little bit dim behind a sheer material. And of course, if you have a fabric that isn't really see-through, if it's velvet for instance, then you still can't really put it behind the curtain since it'll just be blocking out all the light. But if you do have more of that transparent, translucent sheer fabric, then it might be worth exploring to see what you prefer. And I guess one aspect that's kind of cool about these curtain lights is if you do have, again, the entire thing turned off, it's actually not too obvious. Yes, there are a couple of those small lines, but but it almost seems like a natural part of the curtain or decor in the background if you're not looking super closely. And next one here is going to be Moon, which we can kind of make out here on the edge. I guess the trick with some of these pixel art type displays is you have to stand a little bit further away and almost kind of blur your eyes a bit to see the image the clearest. If you're standing too close, looking at just an individual dot, you may not notice the image immediately, but still pretty neat. The next one here is going to be called Star, which is another kind of randomly flashing diamond pattern meteor. It's going to be a faster moving animation of striping across the entire curtain. Mushroom is the next one here. So we can see the mushroom there getting taller and taller, almost as like growing and expanding in front of our eyes. Next one here is called Shiny Rainbow. It's a little bit more static compared to the other rainbow pattern that we saw there earlier, but still pretty neat. Next one here is called Sea Island. So we have the palm trees giving us a more chill vibe. Not all of the lights have to be completely lit. Followed by Sakura, quite pretty, like a cherry blossom. And then we also have one here called Mountain Top. And really this is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just the natural tab effects that are trying to imitate nature. And there are so many more that you can choose between. We don't have time to cover all of them, but you can find other holiday themed ones as well, such as, for instance, if you are celebrating Christmas, you can see that tree here also appear on screen, including other ones that decorate with Santa Claus, a virtual Christmas tree. That might be neat if you don't have space in your room to actually put up a tree. You can have this projected onto the curtain lights instead. Here's also a countdown timer that will go down from 10 seconds all the way down to 1. Will we get a explosion? Yes, we will, before the countdown there will loop. So also pretty neat as another holiday one, so on and so forth. You get the idea. And it's not only for the Christmas seasons either. Case in point, here is Ghost. That might be more applicable for Halloween. If you have this outside of your window during October, for instance, it might be also an interesting option. Here's one called Easter Egg. We also have one here for pumpkin and even for birthday occasions as well. In addition to Valentine's Day, we have some of those balloon-shaped hearts floating up, very cute. Here's also one which is going to be a virtual fireplace, which might be one of my favorites as well. Here's one for St. Patrick's Day. They're in green, so on and so forth. So not bad. As for additional life-based themes, we also have one here which is a waterfall, snowman for other colder seasons. There's one here which is a ice cream cone, which seems to be just falling down, as you can tell there, with different colored ice cream. And we also have a hot air balloon. This one here is going to be a heartbeat, followed by just a natural fire, as you can tell there. It's creeping up higher and higher. You can find other geometrical shapes, including sine waves, even ones here which are inspired by some certain festival rides, like a type of Ferris wheel, I would say, that's spinning round and round, as you can tell there, also quite mesmerizing. Telephone, so plenty of other symbols that you can also pick between. Gourmet, so this is going to be a food. Water drop. And now just for reference, here's what it looks like in a completely darkened environment. As the sun goes down, the colors become even more vibrant and eye-catching. So overall, I would say the effect as well as the brightness of the LEDs shouldn't be too problematic. Again, it's almost impossible to go through all of the options one at a time, but we'll go through a quick montage, tic-tac-toe. It's not really interactive in the sense that you can actually play along, but you'll see it kind of play by itself, also giving us a kaleidoscope of colors. Some of these are inspired by classic kind of 8-bit style games. Here is a maze, and you can see how the dot there is trying to escape the maze little by little. Aircraft battle, so this one is inspired by Battle Galactica with the moving sprites, also quite fun. Racing, so quite creative and really taking advantage of the whole pixel art nature by also having some of these kind of retro style game animations. This one here is poker, windmill, some of those stacking blocks, and we even have Pac-Man on here as well, although it's just kind of a ghost and giant Pac-Man that's moving across the screen as compared to a smaller maze-like pattern, but still quite fun. Cactus, there's going to be some even more options including hearts, UFOs. This is a kind of classic Mario monster plant, as you can tell there, that's dancing across. Pineapple House from SpongeBob. Under animals, we have options here including a jellyfish, birds flying. Here is a butterfly, a duck, jumping chicken. Here's a swan, seahorse, clownfish, a larger panda figure versus a smaller panda figure, a fox, and also this one here is a bat that is kind of flickering across. This one is interesting because it's inverting the color, so really the darker shadows are the bats, and they're flying across a violet sky, as you can tell there. A little whale, there's also a mole or gopher, as well as a sea turtle that you can find. So all pretty cute. Under night scenes, you can find even more, slightly more romantic scenes, I would say, including space. Here's one which is inspired by camping, as well as a lighthouse. Under even more decoration patterns, you can find one here inspired by binary code of ones and zeros, almost like you're transported into the Matrix, as well as other ones that are inspired by windmills, as well as pendulum patterns can also be found. This one here called Ripple is also pretty neat as it's bouncing up and down. Alternating is going to be a crisscross pattern, a little bit more dynamic. This one almost reminds me of paint that's falling down from the top bottom. It's called smudge. And we also have one here called reverse, which is also going to be kind of popping up, down, left, and right until it fills the entire surface area. So here's a few inspired by classic pieces of artwork, including the Mondrian grids. Landmarks here include Big Ben. The Eiffel Tower can also be found. Here are pyramids versus the Golden Gate Bridge, classic red there in the background, as well as Mount Fuji. And the final tab here called Collaboration seems to be more limited edition pieces that folks have created, including one here for Dune, as well as some other symbols. Overall quite immersive, dynamic, definitely adds a splash of color and personality to the entire room that the lights are located in. So next we also have a music tab. There's a mic located on the control box of the lights, or you can use the microphone on your phone, as well as change the sensitivity of the microphone as it is reacting. So just to serve as an example here, it's acting as a visualizer, as well as control, again, some of the different animations that are reacting to sound, as you can tell. Really not bad. You can also use this for music, of course, or if you're watching a movie, just to make the entire room feel like it's alive with the sound. I think, again, this particular one here of the spheres and circles may be one of my favorites, looking really cool, I have to admit. This one here is a floating mist. Here's one called Spectrum, more of a immediate visualizer pattern of waves. Here's one called Falling Sand. Color Flip. Again, these are all interactive with the beat of music and sound. The next tab is called Share Space, and this is where other community members are able to share their creations for you to leverage after they've doodled or drawn something, and you can click there to just transfer it over to the curtain lights. You can also, of course, search for a certain keyword, such as Pokemon in this instance, so you can view a snippet there recorded by the creator, as well as tap on Apply to transfer it over. And now the DIY tab is, again, perhaps one of the more fun ones, also providing a couple of other templates that you can use, as well as other dancing patterns and kind of sine waves, rhythmic patterns. Greedy Snake, so this one might be inspired a little bit more by that classic game, made popular by Nokia devices. More bouncing and rhythmic patterns are available in the templates here as well. And for all of these templates, you're able to change the color as well, in addition to the speed of the animations, making it faster or slower. And if you wanted to go over to advanced, you could also take a look at how this particular animation was created, again leveraging the template, and edit parts of it by removing certain parts of the animation that you don't like, copying it, as well as adding more layers. It's almost like using Photoshop in a sense if you wanted to get into that level of granularity and customization. And if you don't like those templates, you can also find a free finger sketch. This allows you to draw completely without anything in the background. And you can see that overall get transferred over. Let's try a couple more examples here. This is going to be kind of a wave pattern that will be transferring over. As you can tell, they're also working well enough. Now, next one here is called AI, using generative AI like ChatGPT behind the scenes to create some custom images for you. You can use voice or text input and say something like, put me in the forest. You got it. I can do that for you. And now we have kind of a forest theme applied. Let's try another example here. Create a snowflake. Taking a few seconds, it's generated a brand new image, and I can tap on yes, making it possible for you to more quickly create new pieces of artwork to push over to the display as well. And then last but not least, there is a More tab where you can find features, including a countdown timer. That said, it doesn't come with a built-in speaker. It is just lights at the end of the day, so you have to rely on just the visual impact or turn the speaker on your phone to get the full effect. More features, including a gallery function. This will give you even more options if they aren't found in the natural scenes, although all of the gallery options here are going to be static images. They won't be dancing and moving like on the other ones that we saw there earlier, but you can find Pac-Man, Mario, in addition to Snake, Gumball, Tetris, crown or a ring figure, as you can tell, in addition to some clothing options as well, shirts, hats, fashion, depending on what you want. Appliances can also be found here, including a radio, a TV. Home decor can also be found, including even a bedroom, a light, a sofa, notification logo, thumbs up logo, Apple, Blueberry, so on and so forth, that you can also find as kind of like emojis to push over. And then finally, we also have some more geometry options, which I do think also look quite good. Different types of tiles, such as adds a splash of color there in the background. Colors and gradient effects that you can find, but again, these are just be static images, almost like a screensaver, as compared to something dynamic, but still quite pretty to look at, and you can find plenty of options. So these static images really just goes on and on. Here's another dedicated section for autumn, as well as different trees and leaves that you can also find projected on here, all looking quite good, a bonsai tree. And then under musical instruments, you can also find other things like guitars. And then here is going to be word art. So if there's a specific digit that you're trying to display, you can also use some of the templates here to show it off. More seasons, including one here for winter. We have additional snowmans. Weather conditions, you can also display those like thunder, rain, wind, cloud, so on and so forth. Snowing can also be shown here as well. Gifts, so different boxes, again, if you are maybe using it as a backdrop for a birthday party. Natural phenomenon, and animals. So all of these categories you're able to find more images. Some of the final extras here include one called Effects Lab, which is still going to give you a specific color that you can choose based on criteria like if you want it to be colder versus warmer, a certain type of emotion. It's giving a descriptive label to some of the colors to help you find your favorite one more quickly. And last but not least, on the very top here, if you purchase additional sets of the curtain lights, you can expand on the width and control it all as a larger surface area or virtual screen size. Further down below here is where you can change the Wi-Fi connectivity settings as well as sync it with your Amazon or Google accounts to use voice assistant control. So you get the idea. The app is pretty fully featured, quite fun and interactive, and for the most part wasn't too problematic from a responsiveness point of view. On the home page, you can also turn the entire lights on and off, check if it's connected by Wi-Fi or Bluetooth currently, and you can find more tabs up top, including a general automation one as well, setting up schedules for certain days of the week, as well as controlling all of your Govee lights at a single click. So for instance, if you're having a party, you can have a party mode. Some more recommendations are shown on the Explore tab as well, like when you're returning home versus morning versus night, meditation, working, for example, can all change some of the themes automatically for you, reading, so on and so forth. And the middle tab here is really for help and discover, so you can ask questions, see some forums from other community members, and even the app itself can be further customized in terms of the theme of the background of the app. So the customization here runs deep, not only within the lights, but also the app, just to make it a little bit more fun, I suppose, but more of an extra touch more than anything. So there we have it. That's been just a closer look at the Govee Curtain Lights, again, Gen 1, and all in all, I think I am relatively impressed. It is one of the better smart curtain light options on the market. Being able to doodle, find so many types of animations, really just makes it more versatile, adding a pretty cool touch of color into any space or room, whether again it's a living space, a bedroom, office, or gaming room setup. I also like the fact that it's waterproof, so you can use it both indoors and outdoors, and as we've touched on, I think the brightness and color is honestly really not bad, even on this first gen model. For indoor use, particularly, I would say it's already more than satisfactory, acting as a nice piece of lighting for reading, working, as well as just general ambiance. You can check out more details if interested in the links down below. For now, that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews.